So today is the day to take a look at the last of the P30 series from Huawei. I've got the P30 Lite, which is a phone that strips back on a number of specs from the regular P30 and P30 Pro to bring you a P30 at a slightly cheaper price. But how does it hold up in 2023 at nearly 4 years old? Let's take a look. So aesthetically, the P30 Lite does look very similar to the regular P30. Up front is a near identical 6.1-inch 1080p display, this time only an LCD instead of an OLED, with a similar notch which houses the 24-megapixel selfie camera. And despite the similar display size, the P30 Lite is slightly larger than the vanilla P30 due to the thicker bezels all round, most notably the chin. Overall, the display is nice, but sadly it doesn't have the contrast of an OLED panel, but is still good enough for everyday use. As for the rest of the phone, the P30 Lite shares the same glass back as its older siblings, which is nice to see on a Lite model, but the aluminium rails of the other two phones have been replaced by plastic, but this does help to make the P30 Lite a few grams lighter than the regular P30. On the top of the phone you have a microphone and SIM tray, which can also house a micro SD card. The right you have your power and volume buttons. The left is clean, and the bottom there's a single firing speaker, microphone, USB-C charging port and headphone jack. And there's also a very responsive fingerprint sensor on the back of the phone. So the phone has a very similar design to the regular P30, minus a few specs, but it does make the overall user experience very similar to that phone. The P30 Lite is running the old Android 10 with EMUI version 12.0 on top. Huawei is pretty good at keeping newer versions of EMUI on their older phones, despite using older versions of Android. And overall, my use with the P30 Lite has been pretty good. It's running Huawei's in-house Kirin 710 processor, built on a 12nm architecture. And of course, this isn't the most powerful or power efficient chip by today's standards, but it's enough to get you through normal everyday tasks and a bit of light gaming. And although the Kirin 710 isn't built on the most power efficient architecture, its low power draw still does return some pretty good battery life. The 3340 mAh battery will get you through a full day of light to moderate use, but if you start playing intense games and have regular use of the camera, you will notice that endurance isn't quite up to par to other smartphones. And the P30 Lite does support rather modest 18-watt charging, which will only get you about 40% in 30 minutes. So it's not horrendous, and it is actually only slightly less than the 22.5-watt charging of the regular P30. And the P30 Lite also does miss out on wireless charging, so that is something to bear in mind if you're looking at the P30 Lite. And lastly, if I quickly touch on the camera, you get a triple camera system on the back, as you do find on the regular P30, but it's a 48 megapixel f1.8 primary camera backed by an 8 megapixel ultra wide and then a 2 megapixel macro camera. In some markets, the main camera is a 24 megapixel camera, but my model is the 48 megapixels. I'm not sure which market has the other version. And overall photo quality from the main camera in good lighting come out with really nice natural color, good amounts of detail, but unfortunately dynamic range isn't quite the best. HDR mode, even when you select it, doesn't do the best job in controlling the lighter and darker areas of the photo. So I have found that some sky photos or bright cloud photos have come out slightly overexposed. And the 8 megapixel ultra wide is very similar to other ultra wides that I've used on other budget devices. There is a slight color shift in certain scenarios, and of course detail isn't going to be anywhere near what it is on the main camera. Ultra wides always use lesser quality sensors, they're normally smaller, and then of course that lower resolution does knock the quality of the photos as well. Distortion correction has been applied, so you don't get that fisheye look around the photos. That's something that's really good on the P30 Lite. But overall photo quality, like I said, is about on par with other budget 8 megapixel ultra wides. So that's just something again to bear in mind with the P30 Lite. And video is just bog standard budget quality video. Of course, you're not going to expect anything over the top. It's great if you're taking a bit of video of the kids or your pets at home, something like that. But of course, if you're a budding videographer, of course, a P30 Lite or any other budget phone isn't going to be something that you're going to be choosing. So that's, again, something to bear in mind. I say that way too much in my videos, so I do apologize. That's the P30 Lite camera. Very briefly, it's just a bog standard budget quality camera. Bins down to 12 megapixels, so it does help to bring in a little bit more light into the scene. And then you do get a night mode as well, which does help to brighten trickier condition photos for just bringing in a little bit more detail. So Overall, that's my look at the P30 Lite. It's a pretty decent phone, even almost 4 years later. Personally, I much preferred using the regular P30 and of course the P30 Pro. I actually paid less for the regular P30 second hand than what I paid for this one, but I thought to myself, I need to look at this one as well, as I have done the other two. The links for those other videos will be in the description below, so be sure to check those out if you're interested in those, and subscribe to the channel and let me know what you think of this video, what you think of this phone, and drop a like on this video as well if you enjoyed it. And thank you for watching. I will hopefully see you in the next video.